Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Jacob, and I am the Associate Director of Admissions at Duquesne University School of Law, located in Pittsburgh, PA. I just want to welcome everybody to Galentine's Day. It's our Women of the Law event. We have a spectacular panel, so let's get started.
So welcome to our second annual Galentine's Day celebration of women in the law. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions, and I'm here with my team and wonderful faculty and current students. My fun fact is I worked at Duquesne as Director of Law School Admissions many years ago. And if you come to the law school, I will tell you exactly how many that is. And I'm back now because it was always my favorite place to work, and I love it here.
My name is Kristen Petrina. I am a 4E student, so I'm in the evening division. I am a non-traditional student. I've worked for many years prior to coming to Duquesne. What actually brought me here was the flexibility and the ability to continue to work as well as pursue my education. And as we go through today, you're going to hear a lot of the benefits that are not only for your non-traditional students, but also the women that are in the industry as well.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alana Fortna, and I am the alumni that's on the discussion today. And so I graduated from Duquesne Law in 2010. So in my 12th year of practice, and I was at a law firm in Pittsburgh, Babs Callan, for about 12 years until very, very recently when I accepted an opportunity to work in-house at Viacom CBS Inc. And so very exciting times for me right now. And sort of what brought me to Duquesne was I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh. And so when I knew I wanted to practice in Pittsburgh and I wanted to come back to Pittsburgh after college. And I just had heard such great things about the alumni network. You know, so many judges graduated from Duquesne, just so many, you know, my law firm had so many people from Duquesne. And so that was really, really important to me. And it worked out really well. And so I'm really happy to be here and answer any questions.
Hi, I'm Taylor Maldonado, and I'm a current third-year evening student. So like Kristen, I was very interested in coming to Duquesne because of that flexibility and the ability to work and go to school at the same time. And yeah, I mean, it's been a great experience. I've had a few different jobs since I started law school, and I ended up somewhere interesting. I'm working at the DA's office right now in the PCRAN Federal Habeas Unit. But I'd started in immigration when I got here, so there are a lot of really fantastic opportunities, and I look forward to talking with all of you.
Williams, and I am a 2L, so I am a full-time student. Prior to law school, I actually taught high school English, and so that was kind of what jump-started me into law school. And Duquesne offered a program that was going to get me experience, I think, in like kind of anything that I wanted. It allowed me to cast a wide net, which is what I was looking for when applying to law schools. And so that, in addition to the financial aid that they provide, was just kind of a no-brainer to come here and get to live in Pittsburgh for a little while. So yeah.
My name's Kaine Spitak. I am a 2L full-time student that dabbles in some night classes. So I mix with the part-time students a lot as well. I am currently president of Lambda Law Society, which is an LGBT law society that focuses on education and outreach. I am also part of the Federal Litigation Clinic at Duquesne, and so I can help with any questions about clinics or externships or stuff like that as well. So it's great to see everyone.
Everyone, I'm Professor Meredith. I am a professor who teaches 1L courses. So I teach LRW to the 1L. So some of you may have me in the fall. And I also teach an upper level class called Core Comps, which some of you may have me later on in your law school career. As far as what brought me to Duquesne, well, I'm a huge sports enthusiast, as a lot of people will find out when they get here. I'm a huge Steelers fan, so that brought me into Pittsburgh. However, what kept me here were my faculty, okay? The faculty here really do care about the students. They do a lot for the students, and I really wanted to join a team that was really focused on getting you guys through law school, but also making sure that you're set up for being actual lawyers when you get out there, and that is what you have at Duquesne, people who care about you guys.
Hey, how are you? I am Professor London. I'm the Director of Bar Studies, and I am an Assistant Professor of Legal Skills. So I teach primarily upper level classes, and I also teach legal ethics. I would say what brought me to Duquesne is truly my passion for bar prep. I'm sure you guys know we have an amazing program here, but it's really only amazing because of all of our faculty and all of our students. I think, what keeps me here is Duquesne is an incredibly special place. Like Professor Meredith said, we have supportive faculty, we have really supportive students, and that hasn't been the case at other law schools that I have been at. We do so many innovative things. So in legal ethics, we've also incorporated principles of leadership, which is something that's new and I think is especially important for women in the law. So welcome. We're so glad you guys are here today. Look forward to chatting.
Well, it's great to see everybody. Thanks so much. I first want to say I just love seeing some of my favorite law students here, and we have alums and my favorite faculty, and a big thanks to our admissions team for coordinating today's event. I'm going to say a few words, not just to introduce myself, but just to talk about why I think it's important for women, and in particular women of color, to study law and become lawyers. The bottom line is that lawyers can change history, and lawyers have the ability to improve the human conditions. About why I think that women should be interested in coming to our law school. I think that it's really important to understand that what lawyers do in our society, we change history. We have the ability to improve the human condition. We write laws, we promulgate regulations, we decide cases, and we can create and that influence that policy that is so important in our world, and whether it's at a federal or state or local level. And what I like to see is that lawyers, we can advocate for things that are really important to our own selves, but important for others, and be an advocate for those who don't have a voice in our system. And so as Professor London was talking about, thinking about lawyers who serve as leaders in our society, we see lawyers who are in elected positions, such as presidents and governors and DAs and prosecutors and judges. We lead teams and organizations, and we desperately need more women leaders, and we desperately need more leaders of color who are representative of our multiracial democracy to advance our society to where we need to be. And I think that this is really an exciting moment where the concept of leadership it's shifting, and it's much more inclusive and welcoming. And it really has started with your generation. I think all of you very much embody a very compassionate and respectful, inclusive version of leadership. And that is so needed. And I just think that we need to get out there. We need to own this moment. We need to be a part of the policy making and the lawmaking that is happening, changing the world sort of from where the laws are being made. And I think that that's really exciting. So I also just want to say a quick word about Kristen and Taylor were talking about Duquesne Law and our evening division program, our part-time program. Our law school was founded in 1911 as an evening school so that working people and immigrants in our community could get a legal education. And that is still part of who we are today. We, of course, have our full-time JD program, but we very much celebrate our evening division because not everybody has the luxury of going to law school full-time. They may have other work or family commitments. I'm very proud to say that our first woman was admitted in 1914. Our first Black man to graduate Duquesne Law was in 1925. In 1959, our first Black woman graduated from Duquesne Law. We had one of the first Black deans of a major law school in the 70s for 10 years. And if you look at other law schools, you will see that our legacy is different and was inclusive from the beginning. We have work to be done. We're very proud of our legacy, and we continue to actively make progress in that regard. So I wanted to give you some of that history about Duquesne Law and why it's important, and just tell you how delighted I am to see all of you here today.
Why is it important to have women represented in the legal industry? Why is it important to have diverse women represented in the legal sector?
Well, that just pinged something, but I would definitely want to include Professor Meredith in on this. But as part of our legal ethics class, we bring in the Pittsburgh Diversity and Inclusion Council. And what studies have shown is that when we have diverse female and other lawyers of color working together in teams, we actually tend to get more just results, like in front of juries and in the courtroom. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important.
Piggybacking off of that, I would say that although within the law schools that I've been to, women do make up a great majority of the people coming into law schools, when we look at the numbers, women are such a minority when it comes to being lawyers. I think the last report that I looked at said out of all of the lawyers out there in the United States, there are like 37% are women. And that's just a crazy number to me. And as Professor London was already stating, the people that we represent all come from diverse backgrounds, right? So we also need to have people representing them that also have those same diverse backgrounds and can understand their perspective. And so that is why diverse women and just having women in general in this profession is a necessity.
Can I ask our alum, Alana, if she would like to weigh in on this, having been in practice for so many years?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Maureen. So I think, really the simple response is that the profession of law should and needs to better reflect society, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line basic answer, is that we want our profession to look like society does right now. And I think it's made great strides. And, me personally, I actually never really did feel that my gender held me back at my firm. I was at a great firm. I know Maureen knows my firm well. So, I never felt impeded in my profession at my firm, and certainly advancing, I did not. But, I've practiced in corporate defense law my entire career. And so I can speak obviously very acutely to that. And I mean, companies want diversity. Companies want to have a face and a recognition that aligns with society. And so if the profession of law is not following that, companies are going to be disappointed with the representation, right? Because we all want to we will all want to be relatable. We all want to make sure that all voices are heard and all interests are served well. And so whether that's, you're representing companies where more and more we're seeing in-house counsel and general counsel of companies that are women and diverse women, whether you're in the assistant DA's office, we all need to be representing the interests broadly. And I just think it's so important that women continue to make an impact on the law and continue to, develop and foster in the law, because, I think it's possible, and I think it's a great career path, and it's very exciting. And so, I think just at the most basic standpoint, the law just needs to reflect society.
Sure. So I'm actually of a Hispanic background. And for me, growing up, I never saw, lawyers that represented who I was, where I was from. So that's part of the reason why I ended up here, was I did want to be that representation for others. But beyond just the mere, visual representation, I think it's important to have diversity for change. Women especially are very good at enforcing change. If you want something done, I tend to ask a woman. And beyond that, I think it's also important to get the most innovative ideas. Diversity really provides that different perspective, and you need that to come up with the best solution. So that's why I think it's important to have diversity in law.
What I just wanted to add to what Taylor was saying is, who better to advocate for us than us? And if we're not in those positions of power, if we're not in those positions to articulate what can be done better, than us. Now, that doesn't mean that it should fall entirely on our shoulders. However, we can articulate those needs better than anyone else. So it's just really important that we end up in those positions. And like Alana was saying, there's a lot of industries and practice areas that are still very male dominated. You'll see a lot of women kind of go into the same profession, the same practice area. And it's really important that we carve our way into those areas to really create that change that is needed in the industry, but not only that, but in our world as well.
Thank you, Kristen. We do have a question that popped in, and I definitely want to make sure that we're serving our students here. So I'll go ahead and ask the question. Heather, thank you so much for typing this in. I've heard that law is one of the professions that can have a bit of a boys' club mentality. Is that still an issue, and how do you handle it if it becomes a factor?
So I wanted to jump in actually, and I hesitated answering the last question because it kind of addressed a little bit of the boys' club question. So thank you, Heather, for putting that in the chat. But I wanted to say that, you know, I have been very fortunate, at least in the positions that I've held within the city of Pittsburgh. You know, I've worked with Highmark. I currently clerk with a woman who owns her own firm. And so I've been very fortunate that most of the positions that I've been able to work in have primarily been women dominated. However, I think very realistically speaking, there is still a lot of, I guess, kind of microaggressions that exist that are very sexist in nature. And I think that makes it all the more important for women to be in the legal profession, primarily, you know, changing that culture and working with female attorneys who have been in the culture and dealt with the boys' club mentality that, you know, is definitely changing. I have seen, you know, in the last couple years alone, my own progress through law school, kind of the way we talk about representation and the way we even navigate kind of professional relationships with people has been different. And definitely we've seen that the women who are already in the field have been actively changing that culture. And, you know, I could not be more proud of them, but even more so, it kind of shows that that is something that we need to strive to continue to do. And maybe one of the silliest examples is I was working with an attorney once who told me that I wrote like a woman. And it was because I used too many exclamation points in my emails, apparently. And, you know, point taken, I guess that I can see how maybe some of my sentences didn't come across as forcefully or as sternly as he would have liked. But, you know, I have also seen, though, as I've brought this up with female attorneys, you know, that is something that we should be changing. It is okay to say thank you with an exclamation point in an email, and it doesn't make you any less of a professional, and it doesn't make you any less intelligent. And so, you know, that is like a small example, obviously, and not something that in the grand scheme of things, I think is necessarily actively oppressing me in the workplace. But that is just a small example of kind of the barriers that women face that might make them feel, you know, I don't deserve to be here. I'm coming off too much as the gender that I am. And that shouldn't be seen as something negative. And so while, to answer your question, I guess more succinctly, I think the boys' club still exists, but I think we've actively seen the boys' club shrinking and being torn apart. And it's a really great change to see, and kind of being a proponent of that makes it all the more important as well.
Can I add to Kaine's statement as well? So I work at a firm that is male dominated, and they had the associate that I worked under. She wanted to have a baby a couple years ago, and she went to the partners and she said, "You have no representation for me, and I don't know how I can stick out this career in this office if I don't see other women who are mothers, who are partners, who are at that level." And they went out and found female partners for her, so she would have that support and she would have that role model, those role models. And I think that's really important, is that it is still male dominated, right? There are still more male partners at that office than there are female partners, but they listened and they heard and they adjusted. That's not to say that every firm is going to do that. They're not. But I think that's it's an important question to be asking when you're interviewing and when you're looking at places of employment, is like, what, more than just what is the environment, right? Like what is the day-to-day? The current firm that I'm at during the school year, it's completely female dominated. They're all mothers. They all have young children. Fridays, no, I'm the only one in the office, right? Like it is a totally different environment. And those are like the kinds of questions that you want to be asking, because they will tell you a lot about how they work with women, I think, and whether they're willing to accommodate and whether they're willing to make adjustments. And that's really important.
I agree. And what I would just say, handling that second part, how do you handle it? This goes back to leadership, right? And I think, I'm obviously older than all of you here. So I remember I was part of the generation where it was act like a man, get into the man's world, and then make changes. But I think what we all found in that movement is that doesn't really work. And so you've gotten some good examples here, and I know we're seeing it across firms where women are coming in and we are being confident and we are being leaders and we are expressing ourselves. So that's how I think you handle it. And I think we are seeing change, even from a legal perspective. We're seeing the ethics rules 8.4G coming in that are anti-bias and harassment. They're working on passing that in PA right now. So yes, there is still a boys club, but you know what? I think things are changing and we have the power to do that.
Have you encountered any challenges in your career, in the classroom, in your internship, externship clinics, a lot of different opportunities here at Duquesne, but really, how did you handle it? And was there somebody that maybe helped you? Who do you turn to get maybe some of that advice to overcome some of those obstacles?
I think one of the great things about getting to practice in Pittsburgh, at least while you're in law school, and then hopefully if you decide to stay here as well, is that there is an amazing demographic of women from all backgrounds, all cultures, all of whom are willing to kind of take on a mentor position and fill that support system that is needed. And really all it takes is reaching out to those women and asking them questions and helping navigate through different problems that might arise. And so I have experienced different things where I might have struggled with certain topics or not been as talented in contracts or torts as I wanted to be my first year. And whenever I would speak with the women at my first year job, they said to me, that's okay. Like, this is what I did. This is how my career path looked. And then it's an excellent network of people who they will introduce you to more women lawyers, more diverse lawyers who, if they themselves don't fit your background or your community that you're seeking support for, they will open that door for you to be able to find that support system. And I have yet to meet a single person who has shut that door and who has not been willing to meet for coffee, or even if it's on Zoom, or send an email, even if it's a simple question.
I have worked for many years before coming to law school, and I've faced numerous different challenges over the years. I work in a financial industry, and so my entire career has been in a male-dominated area. And Kaine was right. You find that network when you come across a challenge, and your network doesn't necessarily have to look like you. They don't have to have the same path as you. It can be anybody that can support moving forward. And, I'll speak to Professor London because she's one of the faculty members who is really there for their students. I went to her just struggling with my age being a concern for a lot of firms. I'm not that old, but it is a concern. And just speaking with her and finding a way to kind of carve my own path and making what I want to do fit in the industry. And then that kind of results in those changes. So when you face those challenges, don't let them stop you. you can take that moment to feel a little defeated or to have the wind knocked out of you, but don't let it stop you. And that's one of the biggest things when it comes to women in the legal industry. You're going to hit those walls. You're going to hit those boys' clubs, but use it as motivation. Find out how you can change it. Doesn't necessarily mean you follow the same path as the person that went before you. You can find your own way. And it's just asking those questions and finding those people. And I will tell you, in the school, I have found more people that will champion for you. And it's not even championing to necessarily open the door, it's to encourage you to open it for yourself. So that's just one thing that in women, we're not good at it. We're not good at it. We're not comfortable with it. And I'll tell you, in my 4 years from when I started to now, I'm a completely different person, even though I've spent 20 years in the corporate world. You will find that support and know how to move through those challenges as they come up.
Okay. Studies show that a man will apply for a job that he thinks he can learn how to do. And a woman will say, I tick 9 of the 10 boxes, I can't apply. So there's a real difference in thinking, and that is starting to change. But that belief in yourself can be nurtured and developed by having those allies around you that you can really learn from and overcome some of that reluctance or whatever it might be that's holding you back. So I think what Kristen has identified is so important.
And here's a good thing about Duquesne Law. I mean, you will learn this well before I ever learned this, for real. Like, you guys are having these conversations and we're talking about this right now. Literally no one, when I was in law school or in my prior career as a journalist, no one talked about it. So.
And that's specific to the network that you'll find at Duquesne. I have had professors, female and not female, reach out to me and say, hey, I know you're interested in this. What can I do to help you? And if you want to stop at the end of class and ask questions of how to get into an industry, as somebody who comes from a family with no lawyers, that was one of my biggest concerns. Was not only do I have no connections, but I'm female. Like, how do I tackle that? And coming up on my last year at Duquesne, I don't have that concern anymore because I've made connections, I've met people, and people have reached out to me that I don't know to give me the help that I need. And I think that speaks volumes to the care that Duquesne has for their students. And I'm going to make an innocent plug for Dean Barton's class because she probably won't. But we are in, a couple of us that are in here in her law and leadership class right now. And something that we've talked about is, just identifying that boys club and how do you get around that, and what can you do as a female individual to figure out your leadership style. And we've had a lot of discussions about your core values and being able to identify those in organizations where you're considering working. And I think that too plays a big part into it is, finding that culture where you fit. Sometimes companies just aren't ready for that strong, dominant woman, and they'll get there maybe eventually, but find the place that is ready. Find the place where you can make the difference, where you're going to feel good about what you're doing. So sometimes that leadership really doesn't necessarily come from an external source. It's not just from the network you can build, but internally too, developing your own skills and forcing the door open for yourself.
Taylor mentioned something that I've think about a lot, because we started to ask students, are you first generation college? Are you first generation law school? And at Duquesne last year, 83% of our incoming class was first generation law school. So that idea that students have coming in, that everybody else has this network of family lawyers and whatever else, and you're the only one that doesn't, we've just busted that myth, because that isn't what we're seeing. We have a first generation organization because our students feel like that's an important topic. And so there is a recognition that that's not built in for most of our students, having this network and information about the law.
What sort of diversity is there among the faculty and students, such as women, LGBT, people of color? Who would like to answer that?
I can jump in, and I know Maureen also has some statistics. Just generally, I will say that we have made great strides. We still have much more work to be done, but in terms of diversity, just in terms of race and ethnicity, those are the numbers that the ABA measure. From 2016 to where we are now, we went from 6% and we're now at 17% students of color. Again, just race and ethnicity. That's not measuring other types of diversity that we have at our law school. And I recognize that we're still working and we want to continue working in that regard. Among faculty, full-time faculty of color, now we are at 30%. But we have representation, of course, in our student body and our faculty, LGBT, and certainly we have a incredible diversity of women. Just generally, we have very strong. I think even more than 50% of female students at the law school. So we're doing very strong there. So hopefully that answers your question.
The other thing that impresses me about our law school is the commitment of our alumni of color. And our alumni tend to be very dedicated and committed. Thank you, Alana, for coming today. But I see so much work being done with our alumni and our students of color to make sure that they are getting everything that they need, that they're getting the experiences, that they know about opportunities that are out there, a lot of mentoring that goes on. And that is going to pave the way for us to continue to grow in the area of diversity.
And maybe some, go ahead, Kaila.
I was just going to say, I can add on to what Dean Stokan said a little bit. I'm a member of BALSA, which is the Black Law Student Association here at Duquesne. I think it's the only affinity group that is like ethnically, so my friend Sam, he is Asian, but he is also kind of a member of BALSA because he doesn't have an affinity group at Duquesne. So it is definitely very inclusive in that sense. And going to what Dean Stokan said about mentorship, it is more than I could have imagined. Like there's just so much support that I feel all the time from Duquesne's Black alumni and alumni of color and the faculty and staff. Like, I think it's really, really strong, and it's more than I could have imagined. Especially, I went to a PWI for undergrad as well, and it was like non-existent there. And here it just feels very supportive. We have like Judge Elliott Housey, who like offers free tutoring and writes incredible letters of recommendation. Our advisor has like had us over at her house before, and she's always checking in. Professor Meredith, even like I didn't have Professor Meredith last year, but our advisor was like, there's a new Black professor. And so I emailed her and was like, hey, can we meet real quick over Zoom? And like, I think there's just a ton of support there for Duquesne's diverse students. And they do a really good job of making sure that they feel supported.
And I guess I'll jump in since I am president of Lambda Law. It's a little hard to know how many students obviously are LGBT because it's not something that's tracked. I'm constantly trying to, convince and trick the students that I'm able to find LGBT or not at the law school to come to Lambda events and participate in the stuff that we have going on. But I will say that is a network that has been growing, and we have a ton of events that are kind of in the works and coming up. Lambda is sort of they're a rebranded law society that is trying to kind of gain more footing and put more resources out in the university. And so that is something that has been very exciting to see in my time alone that I've been at Duquesne, because I know as a first year, that is something that I really looked for as someone who is LGBT, and I really wanted that community. And so being able to kind of get involved with that, and then having the honor and opportunity now to kind of help continue and put those resources forward is something that's really exciting to see happen at Duquesne, and see Duquesne administration work with and kind of make initiatives and include LGBT people more as well in their curriculum and outreach.
And I just wanted to jump in there. It just made me think of and I know you were part of this last year, your predecessor did a seminar for everybody about being a good ally. And it was so well done, well researched. It was so helpful. And I find myself thinking about that frequently in terms of being a good ally to many different people. And I just appreciated how much was put into that. But you're right, there's a lot of support there too.
In my evening division program, in my year, I can't speak to the other years, but we are primarily women. There's only one straight white male. The rest of us are diverse in whether it's gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity. There is diversity in that. But what I wanted to kind of speak to is the support is within the university, but because we are based in Pittsburgh, we also have the support of the ACBA, and there is a gamut of committees and organizations that support the students in the school and the different associations. So it's not just within the school. Yes, that's important because that's where you spend the majority of your time, but also the school has worked really hard to create those connections with the ACBA, which is the Allegheny County Bar Association, I'm sorry, to make sure that there is that support, making sure that we're aware of different webinars or learning opportunities to help continue grow that support and increase the diversity in our organizations, the school, and just our overall environment.
I think too, to add what Kristen just mentioned, as important as it is to see that in the school, it's also nice to know that the school is giving back to the community. Just as one example that I can give of something that I was involved in was the name change project. And what that is it allows individuals who feel that their name no longer represents how they identify, they're then able to, get their name legally changed. And so beyond just the diversity within the school, it's really great to be a part of a community that is outreaching from the school to the community to help those who need it, who are of a diverse background.
Adding on to what Taylor said, love the name change project. You should absolutely volunteer with them if you have time. It's phenomenal. It's so fun. And it's great to get to go to the hearing as well at the end, and kind of see just happy faces, people taking pictures. It's really great. But additionally, I wanted to add another thing that the university really does, which I think is phenomenal, is that there are monthly meetings that are for the Diverse Students Council. I don't remember the official name of it, but we meet monthly with Dean Barton and other faculty members and kind of talk about different university initiatives that are going on, specifically for diversity and inclusion progress and updates at the university. And so the students will be able to weigh in on their concerns, on their thoughts, on things that they think are important. And then the university will say, okay, we're going to work on this. We'll come back and talk to you about it and give you updates. And I think that kind of real-time progress, that real-time updating of, what the university is truly doing is very important, because it's more than just virtue signaling to outer communities. It's also saying we do care about our community and we show up for community and we are working on doing better. And that is, 100% where we need to be and what we need to continue to do.
Does Duquesne prepare those in marginalized groups to overcome challenges they might encounter due to not looking the part of what society expects a lawyer to look like?
So I will start this one. I can't speak from the students' position, so I hope the students will weigh in on this question. However, from a faculty position, I do have students who come to me often as an African-American woman and ask me questions. Right now, my hair is straight. Usually it's in curls. And so I've had students come to me and ask about, things from hair to how to dress, to get the internship and get the part. As I believe you guys talked about earlier, I am an advocate for culture and not being in toxic cultures. So I always tell people that, you need to be your true self when you're walking through these doors. It is hard to continue a farce. So, you may be able to do it the 2, maybe 3 months of your internship, but if you do really good work, they most likely are going to want you to come back. They might even offer you a job. And so how will you continue that farce for however long that you plan on having that job? So I always tell students, just be true to yourself. if they don't like your curly hair, they don't like the fact that you wear pantsuits, that's on them. You're still a qualified lawyer, okay? The other thing, though, I do have candid conversations with my students. One thing, as you guys mentioned about this being a boys' club, is that some judges still have old school mindsets. And so when I gave my 1Ls the presentation on what not to wear, I had to be candid with them and let them know that some judges still want you to wear a skirt suit or a dress suit, because that is just the image of a lawyer that they have when it comes to women. I am all about a pantsuit. I love a nice pantsuit in the courtroom, but this is just the game that we have to play. And at the end of the day, it's not always about our feelings. It's about representing our clients to the best of our abilities. And sometimes we have to play that game. But at the end of the day, I think Duquesne and the faculty recognize these issues in the profession, and we advocate for our students to be true to themselves out there.
I can jump in from the student perspective. I think that Duquesne does an excellent job with resources. I mean, if, for example, you're concerned about looking the part, and for those who are unable to afford a nice suit, there is an area in the lower level of the law school that has professional clothing, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But beyond just looking the part, something that I personally struggled with was when I was searching for a new job was I wanted to make it very clear that my Hispanic identity was important to me. And how do I do that in a way that will come across, but won't feel, unfortunately, pushy to somebody, or will still get them to, give me the opportunity. And the Career Center's amazing. They did such a good job of working with me to fine tune my resume and my cover letter to really say, this is important to me, and I'm going to bring that to this job, but in a way that people found endearing. And it's unfortunate that we have to even think about that, but they are really great at helping you with those things. And we also have mock interviews. So I think the preparation into getting you there and having somebody to bounce these ideas off of, it's really helpful. It's really, really helpful.
The ACBA, so the Allegheny County Bar Association, has a diversity clerkship of some sort. So they help you prepare for that as well. But I mean, they go into it knowing that, like, we need people who don't all look the same and who don't all act the same and who don't all bring the exact same background to our firm or in-house. Or, I mean, they had, I think, like close to 60 different job opportunity, companies this past year. So I think the county as a whole is also recognizing, like, we need to adjust. So that's also another great thing, that, like, you can bring your full authentic self here.
I would also add that I think the process of going through law school alone is, an experience where you kind of learn what kind of person you are and what is really important to you, and something that is not negotiable, different things about your identity, about your work-life balance, whatever that may be, even outside of, being part of a marginalized group. And I think that you kind of gain that confidence as well to say, this is who I am, this is what I bring to the table. If you can't appreciate that, if you can't have a space for me that is conducive to what I need, then I'm going to go find a place that is. And I'm not sacrificing anything by doing that, because this isn't the opportunity that I need it to be for me. And that might be something that is a little more intangible, but I think for me, at least, it has really changed how I go into interviews, and I'm less nervous now about, coming out to them or telling them different parts of my aspect or identity. Because really, if it's not acceptable to them, it's not acceptable to me. And that is something that I think law school really hones and really helps you kind of embrace. And those job opportunities are there where they are going to embrace you. And they're not rare either, which is really great and really affirming.
If you can go back in time, what is one piece of advice you would have given to yourself before entering the legal field, or maybe even law school?
What I would have told myself is that you don't have to have it all planned out. One of the things that I run into with law students now, and what I had issue with when I went to law school, is that I had a perfect plan, a perfect vision for what I wanted to do. I knew I had 3 years of law school. I was going to be in-house counsel for about 10 years and then transition maybe to like criminal defense for a little bit, dabble there, and then go into being a professor. I had a whole plan out. And honestly speaking, that was not my plan. That did not work out for me. Law school teaches you so much. And so what I tell students now, enjoy those 3 to 4 years. If you're an evening student or a day student, enjoy that time in law school. Allow it to shape you and mold you. Take opportunities in law school to learn new things. I was very, very focused. I knew I wanted to do transactional law and only focused on that area. Little did I know when I got out of law school, I was going to do criminal defense. So everything that I focused on in law school really didn't help me in actual practice. So use this opportunity to try things out. Don't close the door. You never know where it's going to lead you.
I would say what I would go back and tell myself is to not compare myself to others and to just worry about what I'm doing, what I'm learning, and how I'm progressing. And, you know, I eventually learned that in time, and it didn't take too long, but for the first few years of practicing law, I was always, you know, comparing and contrasting myself. And a lot of times it was to like some of my male peers who, you know, were all stars at the law firm and, you know, well, oh, geez, do I have to do business development and networking the same way that he does? Or he has these opportunities. I haven't done that yet. Does that mean I'm not on the same track? And once I stopped, you know, focusing and comparing myself to others and just worrying about myself and trying to be the best attorney I could be, it really started to fall into place much more nicely. And it was like I took the pressure off myself. And then, you know, the rest kind of happened very naturally because, you know, clients and partners at my firm realized that I knew what I was doing and that I was really an asset. And so that's probably what I would go back and tell myself is don't compare yourself to other people. Just worry about what you're doing and just do you. And I thought it was, Professor Meredith, you had talked about, you know, the pantsuit versus the skirt suit. That drove me nuts. I love pantsuits and I didn't care. I wore them to meet clients. I wore them in court and that was me. And I was not going to wear a skirt suit just because, you know, I had heard that there were, you know, judges or whoever the case may be that thought I should wear a skirt suit. I was the most comfortable in pants and that's what I was going to do. And so that's, you know, just be you. And I think it'll fall into place really nicely.
Kind of bouncing off of that, this is a little more condensed because I am only a 2L. But my biggest piece of advice to myself, full disclosure, is that it is okay to be bad at things. You can try as hard as you think you possibly are capable of doing. And sometimes you just don't get the grade that you thought you were going to get. And sometimes you just aren't as successful at a project or a first draft, anything, as you really wanted to be. And that doesn't make you a bad lawyer. That doesn't mean you're not going to get to be a lawyer. Duquesne is still letting me come back to law school, so I'm assuming I'm going to get to be a lawyer and I'm able to still get jobs. So it really is okay. And it, you know, it can feel really disheartening when you don't succeed and you're used to succeeding, but it's something that you have to learn, and being able to kind of pick up those pieces and say, you know what, I was bad at this, but I'm going to try it again, but in a different way. And being able to see a little bit of success or a little bit of growth because you came at it from a different angle is so motivating and so encouraging. But being able to take that first step and do that is the initial advice I would give to myself, and to be kind to myself about it whenever it happens.
Can you please talk about the culture of the law school? Is it competitive? Do students tend to form study groups? Do professors give grades based on comparison of other students?
So I actually was going to speak to this when we were talking about one thing that you would tell yourself. So one of the biggest fears that I had coming into school was you hear absolute horror stories about competition, that the person sitting next to you will slice your throat to make sure they get 5 more points on that grade, or they're going to tear a page out of a book. I will tell you, I am absolutely blown away by, yes, there's competition. We're all working to be the best version of ourselves, but the students work to support each other. You may find a group that you gravitate towards more than another, but you will have that support from your peers. You're going to have that support from the faculty. I was genuinely surprised by how low key the competition is. You end up being in competition with yourself more than anything, and you kind of fall where you do, in the course. And I'll let the professor speak to the grading, simply because the way it's done, you may end up, like Kaine said, receiving a grade you've never received before, and it shocks you to your core. But you recognize that's not a failure. Maybe it's just not your strength. Maybe that's not the area that you're going to be the most successful in. Take it for what it is, find where you are, and you go from there.
My experience as an evening student might differ from other students in the day program, but I will say that I have never met people so willing to share knowledge in my life. And it's not just people in your year. You might need an outline for a class you're really struggling with, and you're like, I don't know if I covered everything in my outline, and I'm really concerned about it. There are years and years and years of students ahead of you that are willing to help you and willing to look your outline or willing to build an outline with you. I will say that your first year, you will be in an LRW class and you will do group exercises. And I personally am someone that fell in love with my group, and those are my closest friends, my closest allies. We still prepare for exams together every semester. And I'm going into my last year next year. So you definitely, build study groups. You'll have some that are built in for you. You don't have to stick to those. You'll find, your group, but never feel restricted by those, because anybody you'll ask will be willing to help in any way that they can.
One of the most common experiences that I feel like I have had in the past 2 years of law school has been sitting in the student lounge, trying to do homework or read or something, and hearing a group of students who are in my class or have taken my class complaining about the material and saying, I have no idea what's going on. This is really hard material. And it is very common for myself or someone else to jump in and say, oh, are you in this class? I also don't know what's going on. Isn't that ridiculous? Let's help each other. And that is both how you make friends and how you make study groups. And you work through the material together. And, it's a little bit of like a session of us complaining and, lamenting that it's so hard and the books are all heavy to carry and stuff like that. But it really builds a sense of community and kind of that invitation to jump in and say, I also need help. I also really don't understand taxes. What is that? Or just any of those topics, I think has been one of the best ways, at least, that I have been able to, build great outlines and see different materials and notes and feel more confident going into exams and things like that. So, that's honestly one of the most common occurrences I've experienced and witnessed in my day-to-day at Duquesne.
I just want to quickly weigh in on the question on disabilities. So we have disability services at the university that will handle anything that's going on in the law school. Typically what happens is a student will either identify an accommodation that's needed when they're in the application process or after they're getting ready to enroll. And when I get that information, I escalate that to our Dean of Students, Dean Ella Quiznick, and then Dean Quiznick works very closely with our Office of Disability Services to make sure that the student has everything that they need in place before the semester starts. Sometimes students will receive a diagnosis or something very late in the game, maybe even during law school. And then, you let us know and we're going to work with you on that. As far as numbers, I wouldn't have those. I'm not privy to that. But I know that when we have a request from a student, there is support there to make sure you get what you need.
I could just add to that very quickly because Dean Quiznick, in fact, does work with students with disabilities. It's completely anonymous to your faculty. And so the faculty doesn't know if you're taking an exam with a different time or in a different location. So that's all done. And she does work one-on-one with our students with disabilities or have accommodations during exams. And just in general about grading, there was a question about that. So for larger classes, there is a grade distribution, but for the smaller classes, there isn't. And so just to give you a sense that you are graded against your peers in a larger class where there's going to be a curve and a distribution, but for the most part, in the smaller elective classes, that doesn't happen. So I just wanted to answer that question.
And if I could leave you just with just one last thing, I want to say this, like, first of all, welcome. Second of all, law school will change your life, and it will change your life in all the best ways. So I'm excited for you guys on your journey. I'm so thankful you're here today. Thank you to our students and the faculty. Duquesne is really a wonderful place. It's not just something we say. I hope you've gotten kind of a feeling of that today. So thanks.